All right. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Google Drive SDK session. So my name is Nicolas Garnier. I'm a developer advocate. I work for Google, obviously. And I'm based in Zurich, usually, in Switzerland. So let's start with a little question. So who in the room think they're here because we're going to talk about Google self-driving car? No? Well, the few of you are going to be a bit disappointed. I'm sorry. So we're going to start by explaining what is Google Drive. And first, let's see who already knows what Google Drive is. Who is already a Google Drive user? Who doesn't know? OK, I'm not going to explain very well. I'm not going to explain. You all know it's like this. Basically, this hard drive in the cloud. You upload your files there. So we offer you sync clients that work on PC and Mac, and there's also these client apps on Android and iOS, so you can view your files. That's the basics of Google Drive and other similar technology, similar services. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into details about just a few of the features that we offer, because some of these features are quite important for you as a developer. So all these first slides, the marketing team built it. They look very pretty. They have like this super cool title, access everywhere. So store your file in a safe place. So, but that's actually true. Store your file in a safe place. I wanted to tell you a little story. The text is like the marketing text. Whoa, super safe. If your phone falls into a glass of water, still have your files inside Drive. I wanted just to tell you exactly how safe your files are when they are hosted on Google infrastructure. So actually, a couple years ago, I was working on another product. I'm not going to tell you what product it is, because what happened is, you can probably find out there was a big outage. What happened is we deleted manually. One of our engineers did a big mistake, and sorry, I'm moving too much for the camera. One of our engineers did a big mistake, and he or she, I'm not going to say, deleted basically hundreds of thousands of accounts. The engineer ran a job, deleted lots of accounts. It was like a disaster. The product wasn't available for a few days for these hundreds of thousands of users, which were trying to manually, run jobs to recover the data. And during these investigations, we basically discovered, because when our engineers work on Google infrastructure, they use this. They build on top of this huge stack of libraries that we have at Google. They don't really know where exactly, in how many places the data is stored, basically, how many times it's replicated. During these investigations, they realized it was basically replicated up to basically 10 times. So there's many reasons for that. You have probably the primary data center, which probably have there are 3 cells or 3 machines basically hosting the data of the user, so that if a machine dies, the 2 others can make sure a 3rd machine will get replicated and the data gets duplicated again a 3rd time on that data center. And then you have the same thing on a backup data center. Sometimes you have a 3rd data center, and we also have, it's been a few years now, we have this magnetic tape. So it saves, we save all your data less frequently though, but on magnetic tapes that we keep safely. So I'm not saying that Google Drive has 10 copies of your data all around the globe, because Google Drive, it's a lot more data than this product. It's people upload gigabytes, sometimes terabytes of data, and we probably don't copy that 10 times. But it's just to tell you how our infrastructure replicates all your data over and over, to keep it safe, so that we always have a copy to basically restore if something happens. So your data is safe. Even if a Google engineer really tries to delete it himself, he's probably not going to succeed. We have ways to try to put it back together. And for the little story, that outage, I think, out of the hundreds of thousands of users, probably only maybe a handful, 3 or 4, we couldn't fully restore the data. That was probably users that, haven't used their data for years. So there was probably no, magnetic tape, saves for them. So it's probably users that probably were not using the products at all for 4 years. powerful search. That was one of the other cool feature, but that's actually true. So what happens is whenever you upload files to Google Drive or you dump files in Google Drive, we try to index it as much as possible. And I'm going to do a little demo. So here's my Google Drive. So my Google Drive contains a bunch of files, and you can do things like searching for Apple. What that's going to do is that's going to find images that have apples in them. That's one of the things we can do. So we try to run image recognition patterns, try to find actual items that are inside your Google Drive. I should have probably searched for Android. If I search for Android, there's also an image of an Android here. I give them always a name that doesn't contain what they are. That would be cheating. Also, we actually recognize landmarks. So if I search for Taj Mahal, we can recognize the Taj Mahal in that picture. And because we're Google and we're super smart, we know lots of stuff. We even know that the Taj Mahal is in India. Yes. So, if I search for India, it's also going to search. Going to find. It's also going to search. Going to find Taj Mahal. It's a very powerful search, and this is available to you through our API. Our API has, a search capability inside the API. And you'll see, you can search for an apple using the API. You'll find that same picture there. We also try to run, OCR on the file. So if the image contain text, if we are able to detect it, we also index it. All right. View anything. So view anything, well, that's also the marketing team speaking. It's not quite right? We ship Google Drive with a web viewer. I'm talking about the web explorer of Google Drive, the web UI. It's shipped with this viewer that can view up to 35 file formats. So that's if you click on a PDF that's inside your Google Drive, we're going to display the PDF. We have a little tool for this. What that brings me to is we also shipped this SDK when we shipped Google Drive, and that had, it had a clear goal. We wanted users to be able to do more with their files on their Google Drive, not only, open the 35 types of files that, what's supported by default by the viewer, but also do a lot more, have editors for all these 35 files, types of files, have and support a lot more, types of files. For example, AutoCAD or whatever. AutoCAD, they have AutoCAD WS, which is a web version of AutoCAD. Why wouldn't they be able to open a file from Google Drive with AutoCAD? And that's what we're trying to make possible when we ship the SDK with Google Drive. So with that, I'm just going to show you actually what we're trying to achieve here, showing you two cool apps. The first one is HelloFax, and the other one is Pixlr. Who has ever used HelloFax, or who knows about it at least? HelloFax? Nobody, man. Every time in the US, everybody knows. Man, you should really check HelloFax. I'm going to show you it's a really, really nice app. So how that's going to work, and I'm going to go to my Google Drive here. And what HelloFax allows me to do is basically, it's online faxing. You select a document that you want to fax, and you can just fax it online like a PDF, for example. Except that PDF is on my Google Drive right now. It's that simple PDF. Here I'm opening it with the viewer. It just says hello. Simple PDF. What I'm going to be able to do with basically what the Google Drive SDK allows you to do is to have this type of integration right there. You can open a file directly from Google Drive using third-party applications. So here I'm opening that PDF, open with HelloFax. What I do is, I get redirected to HelloFax. HelloFax has these two features, has this kind of online signature management feature. It also have, this fax feature, online faxing feature, that this is the feature we want to use. So I'm selecting this. And here I'm redirected to the main HelloFax UI. And you can see HelloFax has directly loaded the file here, the PDF that just says hello. And you're just ready to fax right there. There was almost nothing, you did almost nothing, right? You just clicked on this file inside Google Drive. And, basically HelloFax opened it, and now you're able to fax it to somebody, whatever. Just going to put a random number. Boom, send it now. So HelloFax has a deeper integration. For example, yeah, I've faxed this thing quite a few times before. HelloFax has other cool features. For example, you can actually purchase a phone number, HelloFax, so when people fax you things to that HelloFax number, they're going to directly basically create a PDF file inside your Google Drive. That's the kind of Google Drive integration they created. And it's like really, really slick, really, really smooth. Actually, you guys should try it, because if you open it from Google Drive the first time, I think they give you 50 faxes per month free for 6 months. So it's pretty nice. Just mentioning. It's a really nice app. And let me go back to the slides now. So that was HelloFax. Now you're wondering, how did HelloFax get there, right? I right-click on the file, HelloFax was already there. I want to show you the experience of installing Google Drive apps. You need to install first these Google Drive applications. And currently, the way we do that is you have to go to the Chrome Web Store. And there is a special Google Drive collection here on the left. That's lists basically all the applications that are compatible with Google Drive. And I know this is very confusing. We're working on this. This is on the Chrome Web Store, but it will also work if you're using Firefox or Internet Explorer. Trust me. Just try it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to install a second application, which is called Pixlr Editor, if I can find it here. Add to Chrome. The button also will say add to Chrome, and we're working on this. What it does, it adds it to Chrome, but it also basically installs that application or links that application inside Google Drive. So now if I go back to Google Drive, I need to refresh. And for example, I have this image here that I'm now able to open with Pixlr Editor, which I just installed on my Google Drive, basically. And it works the same way, except that since it's the first time I'm opening Pixlr Editor, I get asked. There's the standard OAuth 2 green screen where I need to allow access to Pixlr to my Google Drive, and also other informations like they want to know who I am, so they can actually sign me in their system, or actually automatically create me an account if it's the first time I'm opening Pixlr. They create an account on their system. So I just allow. And there, I should get redirected to Pixlr Editor. Pixlr Editor, who knows Pixlr Editor in the room? Yeah, at least a few people. It's a really nice app. It's it allows you to basically, edit images. It's kind of like Photoshop style. You have layers and stuff. You can edit, images directly on the web, basically on their web app. And here you go. My picture has been opened. I can modify it. If I save it, it just saves it back to my Google Drive, the same file. It just overwrites it. All right. That was the 2 demos. So that brings us to, let me close this. Brings us to the Google Drive SDK. Basically, this is all possible because of the Google Drive SDK. And what does the Google Drive SDK allows you to do? Well, I listed a few of the features here. The first is, of course, the usual stuff that you can do using, REST APIs, protected by OAuth 2, is like manage basically the files, right? You can read them, list them, create new files, modify existing files and stuff like that. There's a few other things like searching I just talked to you about, sharing and revisions, files. You have revisions of file, you can access older revisions of each file. You have special settings when you're overwriting a file. You can say, oh, create a new revision, for example. That's very convenient if you're dealing, for example, with source code, basically, for example, Java files inside your Google Drive, and you were building like an online IDE. And there is the Drive Web UI integration, which I just showed you, which basically Pixlr and HelloFax uses. These applications, they have integrated with what we call, the open with flow and the create flow. You're able to open files directly from Google Drive with these applications and create files or create new files directly from Google Drive. That's one of the other integration points. The last integration point is embeddable widgets that we provide. It's basically kind of like JavaScript widgets, JavaScript UI, basically UIs that are already ready to use. You can just plug them into your system and they just work. And I'll show you a few later that we provide. Like there is this kind of like file explorer where you can just select a file directly, very easily from Google Drive and manipulate it afterwards, or a sharing dialog. All right, now let's go into a bit more details on how to integrate with Google Drive. Who was here at the OS2 sessions that I just presented with Tim Bray? Okay, hopefully not the majority. This is going to cover a little bit of OS2. So you guys already seen this. Sorry about you guys. The other ones really need to know how that works. The Google Drive API is an OS2 protected API. And you need to understand how OAuth 2 works really well in order to have Google Drive API, have a good, basically, user and authorization experience for your users. So the prerequisites when you want to use the Google Drive API as a developer in your app is, of course, to create a project in the Google APIs console, then enable the API and create your OAuth 2 credentials. So who in the room already integrated with a Google API, let's say contacts or calendar or that kind of apps? That's not a lot. So I'm just going to show you very quickly how, what it looks like, basically. So as I said in the other presentation earlier today, when you want to use APIs that are protected by OAuth 2, now you need to register as a developer. So basically tell us who you are as a developer. So you basically, in Google's world, for Google's OS 2, you go to what we call the APIs console, which you can find here for now, code.google.com/API/console, and you create a project. You create a project, you give it a name. We know who you are because we have your email address, your Google account, basically. And then what you do is, it's in services, you enable an API. You tell us which APIs you're going to be using. So if you want to use Google Drive API, you just enable Google Drive API. And that's where you manage all your quota. For example, for Google Drive API, we give you, for free, I'm going to say, 500,000 requests a day. If you want more than that, it's still free. It's just a manual review. You just file a review. We will look at your app. We make sure it's not like illegal or it doesn't breach our terms of service. And we test. Oh. Okay, it seems to be working. That's the first step. You just enable an API. Then you go in API access, and that's where you create your OAuth 2 credentials. So test. When you, I'm out of battery or something. Okay. Hopefully, this is going to hold until the end of the session. So what happens, you create your OAuth 2 credentials, and we give you this client ID, client ID and a client secret. What that does is that just identifies you as a developer, that tells us which project you are, and you need this in certain OAuth 2 flows. And who has already used OAuth 2 or, for example, OAuth 1 in a previous application? Okay, not that many people. So it's good that I describe a little bit. It's good that I describe a little bit. So I'm going to do a short introduction about OAuth 2. And OAuth 2 can be nicely described using that tool, which I built, called the OAuth 2 Playground. It's a little tool where you can just go through the OAuth 2 flows. It shows you the request, what's happening, explains you how OAuth 2 works, and OAuth 2, as I said in the previous presentation, there is multiple flows, one for server-side application, one for fully JavaScript client-side application. I'm going to show you the most complete flow, which is the server-side flow. This is the OAuth 2 Playground, and it shows a step-by-step process on how you can use OAuth 2. So the first step in OAuth 2 is to redirect the user to a grant page, basically. The user is going to be redirected to a Google grant page, where we're going to ask the user, hey, do you want to grant access to this application for that API, for example, for Google Drive? It's the page you've seen after I've installed Pixlr, where we said, hey, Pixlr wants to use your Google Drive. Do you want to approve or not? So I'm just going to show you how that works with the OAuth 2 Playground. So you have to select which APIs you want to use first. Then that's the first step. You redirect the user to that green screen. So it seems I'm logged in multiple Google accounts. I have to choose first. This is the green screen. The O2 Playground wants to access my Google Drive data. And the user usually clicks allow. So then the user gets redirected back to the application, and we pass the application authorization code here, which is passed in a URL parameter up there. This authorization code, you need to exchange it for tokens. So that's the second step, which the tool, which is very easy to do with the tool. You just click on that button. What happens is you can see the HTTP requests on the right for people who are fluent in HTTP. You just send a post message using the test containing that authorization code, and you pass it to your client secret and your client ID, the things that you got when you registered your application. And Google's OAuth 2 endpoints send you back an access token and a refresh token. The access token is what you need to access APIs. It's kind of like the password, basically. You add that to the requests, and the request to the APIs work. They know which user to use. They know who you are as a developer. They can deduct your quota, and they can access the correct data. There's also a step called the refreshing the access token. That's why we give you a refresh token here, because access tokens are only valid for a short period of time. Typically at Google, it's 3,600 seconds, so 1 hour. After 1 hour, your access token stops working, so that's why we give you this refresh token, which you can use to get new access token here. I just used it. That's the request here. And that gave me a new access token valid again, 3,600 seconds. You see the tool shows you a little countdown here. Then you can use that access token to access the API. For example, one thing you would like to do is probably the first time you use Google Drive is list all the files that are in your Google Drive. This is a simple operation. Since it's a REST API, you send a GET request to the endpoints containing the list of the files, which is this URI here. And you will see the tool sends an authorized request and gets as a response this big JSON object containing the description of all the files in my Google Drive. So yeah, an important point to note is Google Drive API, the REST API, is going to return you basically metadata about the file. So here it doesn't contain the actual content of the file. It contains only metadata like, oh, is the file stored? What's the last modified date? When has it been created? That kind of stuff. And you also get a download URL here. For example, for an image, you would get the download URL. The actual content of the image is contained in that URL. So you need a second request to actually download the image if you're using the Google Drive API. So I hope all this didn't scare you away. That's OAuth 2. That's not like completely straightforward like this. I'm going to show you right now how you can use our our client libraries to actually make this super easy for you. You'll see it's much, much easier. So that's is everybody fluent in Java in the room? Who uses Java here? It's the Java conference, I know, so it should be everyone. Who doesn't understand Java at all? Good, nobody. Or people were too shy. So if you're using our client library here, the first step is to simply initiate these dependencies. You need to do that. That's something with like Google's JavaScript client library. Then you need to create that flow object. That flow is the Google OAuth 2 flow object. It defines that, I'm using the server-side flow of OAuth 2. You pass it a client ID, a client secret, and the scopes. The scopes is like the data you want to access, like Google Drive, for example. And then the first step is to create that URL here. You create a URL builder, do build. If you're in a servlet context, here's a servlet context, you redirect the user to that URL. That's going to be the authorization URL. Usually the user goes to that URL, clicks allow, and he gets redirected back to your website. On your website, on the server side, you can read the code. It's in a URL parameter. It's the authorization code. And the second step is to exchange that code for tokens. And that's done with this only one line here. Quite easy. You take your flow object again that you created before, and you pass it the authorization code, and you redirect your URI. And you get directly the access token, the refresh token, and you're done, right? Once you have the refresh token, you're authorized to access the user's drive forever. So you just keep that in your database, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to have him authorize again, except if he revokes your access. But that's corner cases that you'll need to handle, but it's not the main case. And I'd like to know in the room who is an Android developer. The room. Okay, a few people, not that much. Who is actually a web developer in the room? Okay, a lot more. And who never does web, just does like server-side code, C++, kind of stuff. Okay, not that many. So mostly web developers and a few Android people. I wanted to show you quickly how you can authorize on Android. And part of this is how you authorize on other mobile platforms, like, for example, iOS, since it's a little different. On Android, there is something new called the Google Play Services. It launched, I think, a month ago or something. The Google Play Services contains a very nice way to authorize with OAuth. How that works is you have a little configuration step to do. You go to the Google APIs console, where you register your app. And you're going to give us your package name, the package name that defines your application, basically. And you're also going to give us a signature of your application, so that when your APK tries to use OAuth 2, we check the signature, we know it's the correct APK, and that you've authorized it in the Google APIs console. We know it's client ID automatically, basically. And we can give you very, very easily an access token completely, part of Android. It's very simple. It's basically this one line. You don't have to do all the complicated stuff you've seen before on the web server version. In Android, you do one line here. That's going to give you an access token directly. And you need, of course, to add these 3 lines. That's if the user has never granted you access before. It gives you an exception which contains an intent. You need to show that intent to the user. It's basically the screen that says, hey, application, whatever, wants to access your drive, allow. After your user has allowed once, this will always give you an access token right away. So it's very simple. If you want to know more, because I'm not going to go into lots of details about this, there's a very good presentation that we did at Google I/O this year. You can check. It shows you, from the ground up, how to build a very nice Android app. That works with Drive, of course. An alternative is to use the WebView technique. And that's the technique that you'll use, for example, in iOS or Windows phones if you're building a Windows phone, because we don't have this kind of like native integration with Google accounts that you have in Android. That's kind of also the technique that you would use for other OAuth 2 providers. For example, if you want to use Facebook or something like this. So the technique is to basically embed a web view, a web browser inside your application, and to basically try to use the server-side flow that I've shown you earlier, and catch the code. And then exchange that code for tokens. Basically, go through the regular server-side flow of OAuth using an embedded web view. Here is kind of the step-by-step process and how to do it with Android. There's an event you can catch to catch as soon as the user has redirected. You can catch the code and shut down the browser and keep going. The experience is not bad. Some people have put that online as open source code sample. Onavo did that, I think, 2 months ago or something. You can check their code if you want to do this. I think it really helps. Okay, now the hard part is over. So that was authorization, right? Authorization is not like the easiest part in web APIs. You'll see now using the actual API itself, it's pretty straightforward. Once you've handled all the user experience around authentication, that's what's hard. Now let's try to use the API itself. Since we're finished authorized, we have this access token and this refresh token. We're now authorized. So again, using our client library, our Java client library, you create this credential object. That's the token response, the thing containing the access token, the refresh token that you got before from the authorization flow previously done. So once you've created that credential with this one line here, you've created Drive service object. It's that service object that you want. That service object is basically Google Drive for a particular user. Contains all these files. You're going to be able to run operations on it. Pretty simple operations. You'll see right after. Quite easy. You have this Drive service object, and that's how you can create a file, for example. You need two things. You need to create the file's metadata, basically give us, for example, the title of the file, description, the MIME type, all the stuff if you want it stored inside Google Drive, which folder it should be in, that kind of stuff. It's the metadata. And then you pass us the content of the file. That's the content of the file, the actual file itself, like an image, the image. And with this one line here, this basically sends these two things to the Google Drive API, and this created a file on Google Drive. Pretty straightforward. Fetching a file, so that's getting one file. I told you about the two operations. You need to get the metadata, and then there's this download URL that you need to use. So that's how you get the metadata here. Pretty easy. If you have the file ID, it's like one line. And with this file object containing the metadata of the file, you can do get download URL. That's the URL where the file content is. And you get that with authorized HTTP requests. Again, pretty simple. There's nothing complicated in using the actual API once you've authorized. It's the normal REST web APIs that we have at Google. So you'll have inserts operation to insert a file, list operation to list a collection of files, for example, get for getting one file. You can very simply manage revisions, manage ACL, basically share the file with other users, that kind of things. Very, very straightforward. So I'm not gonna, bore you with going through the list of functions you can use. You've seen these two functions. It's works that way all across the board. And now we're going to see what's a little bit more specific about Google Drive is this UI integration. You've seen HelloFax and Pixlr, how they integrate with the UI. How do they do that? Because what I've just shown you is the other way around, right? You're in your application and you're doing things with Drive files. That's the way it works. For example, if you're using Contacts or Google Calendar, you're inside your application and you're reading Google Calendar data. All of the UI, everything is self-contained inside your application. Here, we have this extra integration point where you integrate with the web UI of Google Drive. Just a reminder, what were these two integration points? The first one was the create menu. And under the create menu, alongside presentation spreadsheet, you'll find the other apps that the user has installed. You'll find yourself if the user has installed your application. For example, you see Pixlr Editor, HelloFax. And that's the OpenWidth integration. HelloFax again on this PNG. You can fax a PNG with HelloFax. That's the Chrome Web Store. That's our distribution platform for now. And that's the steps to add the Google Drive UI integration. So a prerequisite is to create a Chrome Web Store listing, right? So you need the Chrome Web Store entry to be able to install that app. That's a bit painful. Who has ever created a Chrome Web Store listing in that room? Probably who hates it? That's probably the same number of people. So it's really hard to create a Chrome Web Store listing. You need to go there. The Chrome Web Store wants exact images of the right pixel size. They want you to prove that you're the owner of the website, so you have to use Webmaster Tool, upload an HTML file. That takes ages, basically. Creating a Chrome Web Store listing, that's good for when you're finished your development, you want to create something really polished, you want to put very nice images. You don't want to have to deal with creating a Chrome Web Store listing for 1 hour just to get started on your development, right? You just want to be able to click on that OpenWidth integration and get started with coding this. So there's another way to install apps is to use the new install scope. So we have a way to install an application going through an OAuth 2 flow. So for example, you could have an install button on your website. Your website could have this button saying, hey, install my Google Drive app on your Drive. And how that would work, I'm going to show you. Using the playground. This is the playground. I'm going back to the beginning. And this is the scope for Google Drive. I told you it was a URI, like auth/drive, and there's this new scope, which is drive.install. When you authorize against that new scope, you will basically see this caption here. This caption will say, hey, this application wants to add itself to your Google Drive. It wants to appear in the Open With menu, it wants to appear in your Create menu. Once the user has approved this grant screen, your application will be installed, will appear in the Google Drive. So that's the two ways you can install a Drive application right now. Through an OS2 flow, allows you to handle the flow yourself if you want to, and through our distribution platform, which is the Chrome Web Store. And then, of course, you have to go to API. Of course, you have to go to APIs console, enable the Google Drive SDK. So that's the Google APIs console I've shown you earlier, right? Where you create your application, tell us who you are, get your OAuth2 credentials. Now, in services, if you enable the Google Drive SDK here, you'll get that new configuration screen here. And that's very important. That's where you're going to configure your Google Drive application. You're going to tell us, for example, what types of files can you open. You're going to, for example, Pixlr tells us, well, I can open image files. I can open PNG and JPEG and that kind of stuff. So we're only going to show Pixlr when you want to open an image. Right, that's correct. Pixlr doesn't handle, other binary file formats or like text documents. Can't open that, so we don't want to show Pixlr there. So we have to list basically the MIME types and/or the extensions of the types of files that your app can support. And we're going to show, your application just for these files. There's a few other things. Of course, you give us like little icons. So if you're the default application for that file, we show your icon there. There's other minor settings you can set. Like, does my application also works on mobile browsers? So that we're going to show your web application on the Android app. When you open a file, we're going to show your Pixlr, for example, if they tick that box. Import that. Do you actually support opening, for example, native Google documents, like a Google document, a Google presentation, a Google spreadsheet? They can be exported to, for example, PDF. So if you support PDF, you can export these documents. There's a special way to handle that. I'm going to show you right after. This is where you configure your Drive app. How it's going to behave in the Drive UI. So what happens when somebody, technically, when somebody clicks on a file and opens it with your app? If I open a PNG file with Pixlr, what happens? I get redirected first to that authorization flow. And then after I've granted access, I get redirected back to Pixlr. Pixlr gives me a URL in their configuration panel, and I redirect the user there. And what I do is I pass this extra parameter state. That's part of the OAuth2 protocol. You can pass this state parameter, which contains basically arbitrary data. Alongside here, you see the code, the authorization code from OAuth2. So in the state, what happens? That's where we give information about which file has been opened, basically. So, for example, in the Open With action here, we're going to pass the ID of the file. We're going to say, the user opened an action. He got redirected to your application because he opened a file with your application from Google Drive. Here is its ID. So then the Pixlr is going to use that ID to basically load that file and save back to that file. Pretty straightforward. It's an array because there's an option to support opening multiple files at once. If it's a create operation, you click on the create menu, you use Pixlr to create a new application. We pass, a little string action equal create, and we're going to pass this parent ID, basically the ID of the parent. That's the ID of the folder that was currently open. Because I don't know if you've used Google Documents a lot, but if you have opened a folder and you do like create a new spreadsheet, for example, that spreadsheet is going to be created in that same folder. So we wanted to be able to, you to be able to offer the same experience. So when you create a new image with Pixlr, the image gets created directly in that folder because we passed the parents. And there's one last case here, is imports. I told you about this little option you can activate called imports. Is when you open a Google native document. So you can have users right-click on a Google spreadsheet, select open with your application, and you would get export IDs. It's a little different because in the API, it's not going to be the download URL that you're going to fetch. You're going to get export URLs for different types of export formats we support. So if we support exporting that spreadsheet to a CSV file, there's going to be a link for exporting to CSV, exporting to PDF, that kind of thing. You can choose the format you want to use. And that's how it works. Now, that's basically it for the experience on the web, on basically web apps, right? Now we're going to see, because there's also the same similar integration that's possible on Android. So we're going to have a look at that pretty quickly. So that's on Android. That's a tablet. When you open a file using the Google Drive application on a tablet, we're going to show 3 types of applications here. Who has an Android phone or Android tablet in the room? Or ever used one, I guess, or checked one? So you know how kind of the system works, right? There's this intent system. When you open a file, for example, or you want to share something, we're going to show you all the applications that are available for sharing a file or for opening that types of file that are installed on your mobile device, right? That's this little window here. So for example, document viewer or HTML viewer, document viewer, that's an application that's installed on your app that supports this document. That's native. That's nothing special about Google Drive, right? If you select that app, what's going to happen is Google Drive is going to download the file entirely and pass that file to that application. That's how it works. That's how it should work. We also support another type of file is the HTML apps that you have installed on your web version. If they have ticked that they support, mobile browsers, we're gonna if you want to open a file with that particular application, we're simply going to pop up a browser, start that application, and it's the same experience that you had on a desktop. We pass it the ID, for example, Pixeler, open the file, the image, etc. There's a third types of file which offers much better experience that you might want to create. There's going to be a special intent that you can implement. I'll just show you the details in the next slide, where you can actually, instead of having Google Drive download the whole file for you, we're simply going to, if you support it, pass you only the ID of the file, and then you're going to manage the file however you want. So, for example, for an MP3, you could do streaming. You have the ID of the MP3. You could start downloading the MP3 and playing it at the same time instead of waiting 3 minutes for the whole MP3 to download, which is what's possible with the normal types of apps. You could simply want to share that document or do other things like delete it, that kind of stuff. That doesn't require downloading the full file. How you can do that is supporting that special intent here, drive intent action, drive open, that path, that's all Android stuff. I'm not a super Android expert, so you put that in your in your app's metadata, basically manifest. I think that's how you insert it. Then you have some code in your app. That code gets called whenever the intent gets activated or whatever. Android magic. You click on that file, your code gets executed here, and you get the ID of the file right here. And then you can simply use the API normally, like I've just shown you earlier. All right, that's it about Android. Now we're going to see, I told you about the little widgets that are easily usable in a JavaScript environment. Who is also a JavaScript developer in the room? I guess all the Java web app guys. You should do at least some JavaScript, right? So a bunch of people. That's good. And this is the first UI the first widget, that we ship and that we offer with Google Drive. It's called the Picker. And it's actually bigger than Google Drive. I'm going to tell you why. So the Picker looks like this, basically. It can show you what's inside Google Drive. Here, it would show you just text files. It can be configured. It can show you a lot more. Here, I'm just showing Google Drive files. You can use the same UI. You can make that panel on the left disappear or appear and have other tabs. You could use that to show, for example, YouTube videos or Picasa images alongside Google Drive files. All the files that are available in your Google environment. You can use that little widget. It's really neat. It's really easy to use too. How you can use it is, here's how you actually create the view. We call them view for Google Drive. And you pass it MIME types. So for example, here, if you just want to show images that are in your drive, that's how you would do it. And you could have, for example, a second view showing Picasa images, and a third view showing Google image search. So a user could directly search an image on Google image search and select it, you would get it in your app. Then you create the picker. That function here actually shows the picker, so that's probably triggered when the user clicks a button like select a file. And you also pass it a callback, right? So the callback, that's what's going to be called when the user selects a file using the picker, and that's the callback here. In the callback, we're just going to pass you the ID of the file for Google Drive. For Picasa, you can also get the URL because most images on Picasa are available publicly. Same thing for if you're using, for example, Google Image Search, the image search view, you also get a URL. For the Google Drive view, you'll get that ID, so you can, with that ID, start using the API and do whatever you want with the file. Other details. There's one detail that I haven't talked about yet, which is very important, and is about the security model that we use on Google Drive. There's actually some new things that we haven't done with any other APIs. Basically, there is two scopes when you want to use Google Drive. The scope that everybody is kind of like accustomed to if you've used other OS2 providers or other Google APIs is you're going to get access to the whole of Google Drive. That's the Google Drive scope in OAuth2. You can also get, for example, read-only access, but that's still going to be accessing the whole of Google Drive. And there's this new file that we have, which I think here, a new scope that we have, which is only going to give access to your application on a per file basis, so that when you're using Google Drive, you don't get access to the whole drive of people. For example, I don't like when applications do that. I have like a bunch of stuff on my drive, like I have a copy of my passport, of like credit card, of my birth certificate. If people will steal all that, that's very valuable data. So I don't like to share my whole Google Drive with people, with third-party application. And we've made a feature for that, which is drive.file scope. So when you use that scope, the text in the grant screen actually says, well, the application is only going to be able to access files that you have open with that app or that app has created. So what happens there is that Google Drive works the exact same way, the Google Drive API, except you will only see the files that you have created, so that you have uploaded through the API, or you will only see the files that a user has opened with your application from the Google Drive user interface. So you know that right-click open with, or opening a file using the Android application, or that widget, the picker. When a user opens a file with that widget or with that UI, that file will basically get whitelisted, and your application will be able to read that particular file, and only that file, and of course only the other files that the user has previously opened or that you have previously created. That's kind of listed here. And that's a big change to what we've done before using OAuth2, for example. A big change because we don't give you access to whole of the data. For example, if you're sharing your Google contacts, you're going to give access to whole of your Google contacts. But with Google Drive, you have this extra option, which is a lot safer. But of course, only work if you're integrating with one of these UIs, either the open with, right-click open with, or the Google Picker. If you want to actually see the whole files, like build your own Explorer, you won't be able to do that with that scope. You'll need the full scope, the regular scope. All right, and to finish also, a few other features, tips and tricks that some of them I haven't talked about. I've told you about OCR, folder user permissions. Oh, shortcuts, that's important. Shortcuts, we wanted to allow third-party developers who don't have an actual file format. So for Pixlr, it's very easy, for example. They're handling images. Images is always a file, right? So PNG, JPEG. Very easy to upload to Drive. If you're like a web app and you have data that are stored on your database, right? You don't have a specific file format to bundle all that and upload it on somebody's desktop. And you probably want to keep control of that data. You want to keep it on your database. You can still integrate with Drive. We allow third-party to also create shortcut files. Shortcut file is basically going to be an empty file. That file is going to appear as a regular file for the user, except it won't be, the content won't actually be stored in Google Drive. It's going to be a link, basically. The user can only open that file and get redirected to the third-party web application that holds the data, basically. Just like, so the experience for the user is the same. It's just that the content is not actually stored in Google Drive. It's an empty file that just redirects you to that third party. Also, what about Google Documents list? We have another API that's been there for ages called the Google Documents list API. Don't use it. It's been deprecated. So I think it's going away. It's being killed in approximately 2 years. So stop using it. Use Google Drive. Google Drive covers 99% of the features that were available in the Google Document List API. And just checking. Indexable text. Last thing I'm going to talk about. Indexable text is text that we allow you as a developer to upload that we're going to index for search. For example, that's convenient for third party that uploads binary formats, right? For example, if you take AutoCAD, they have an integration with Google Drive. When they upload an AutoCAD file, we can't really read it because we can only read what's text files, right? If the format is XML, we can index the content. If the format is binary, we cannot always read that. So we allow you as a developer to upload text that we're going to index so that, because you know the content of the file, right? You know how to read that file. You can tell us what text is inside, the description or that kind of things. So that when you use a search for text that's contained in the document will still appear in the search feature of Google Drive. Our related APIs, I already told you about document list. AppScript. Anybody uses AppScript in the room? Just checking. Yeah? Well, one. AppScript is this cool technology, also a Google technology, a Google development environment hosted, which is pretty nice. They have a little integration with Google Drive called the docklist bean. It's going to stay the same. It's just going to be rebranded Google Drive. What about Google Storage? Google Storage is another one of our offering, which is more targeted at applications themselves want to store their own data. Google Drive is more of a user-managed storage. The user is going to be the owner of that data. Google Storage is more going to be for if the application wants a storage for itself to store application that belongs to the application itself. So it's a bit of a different use case. It has different billing strategy. It's a different model, basically. All right, to finish some resources, SDK docs, if you want to check out how to build Google Drive apps, are documentation. I'm pretty happy about it, actually. Developers at google.com/drive. Google Drive, most of you were users, so drive.google.com. And we have a blog, you should really follow it. The Google Apps Developer blog contains lots of customer stories. That's where we announce all the launches, all the new features, etc. And all right, thank you very much. I think we'll have a few minutes for questions. Thank you. If anybody has questions, there's a few minutes I think you can ask. Yes? I think there's a microphone right there. You'll have to try to get past all these people.
Do you consider supporting CMIS as a standard?
I'm not aware of what CMIS is. Could you...
Content Management Interoperability Services? It's basically AtomPub?
Yeah, so not for now, but I guess you could create, probably using the API, kind of like an interface to CMIS, right? Like kind of like a, let's say, a plugin. That's not like ideal, I know, but for now, no. But it's definitely something we could do in the future when we want to standardize things across all the different players. For now, we're more in the optic of like developing features, developing our current API, and the API still allows developer to integrate with that kind of protocol usually.
And another one, are you aiming at the enterprise content management market? I mean, there are so-called platforms for content management looking fairly similar in architecture to what you provide.
Yeah.
And is Google becoming a threat?
Well, for Google's enterprise strategy is more around Google Apps, and this plays very well with Google Apps, right? So to me, this would be like the ideal, user-managed storage for Google Apps in a Google Apps environment, right? But mostly for these people, we don't really yet target, other enterprise outside of the Google Apps ecosystem. And this makes it very nice for Google Apps users. They can do things like Google Apps wide, delegation of authority to access all of the users' Google Drive automatically, that kind of things, which are very nice. But I don't think we're yet targeting, other people, and just making it nice for these particular people that use Google Apps. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think there's 2 minutes left, so yeah.
Is it possible to use the OCR engine without creating Google Docs files?
No, not yet. Not yet.
For example, for Android, just...
Yeah, so you seem to have probably tried, right? When you want to use the OCR engine, it automatically, for example, you pipe in an image, automatically creates that Google document with the image inside and the text, right? It's kind of how our OCR feature works. For now, it only works like that. To be honest, our OCR is not like the best in the market. For lots of types of images, it doesn't work too well. I've seen professional, OCR, more like desktop client OCR that you need to pay lots of money for. And these are amazing. They will find any text anywhere, create a PDF with the text, laid out the same exact way. We're not that good yet. I don't think there's been lots of work put in our OCR capabilities for a while. It's something we'll do, right? When we get the resource, we'll probably improve this. But yeah, for now, it's not.
There are plans to do it. Or?
Yeah, there's no short-term plans to improve that yet, unfortunately, because it's a cool free feature.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Time's up. I'm available now. I'll be at the Google booth downstairs. Anyways, for you, if you guys have any questions, I'll be there. Thank you.